If you're new to this channel or have yet to watch part 1, please click the link in the description in order to get caught up to speed. As for everyone else, let's not waste any more time and get straight to it. Time now to enter the third dimension with the Italia Saga, which despite having one of the largest rosters in the entire Fire Emblem universe, only contains 60 to 70 characters at present, which for 2 games combined is somewhat small, but that doesn't detract from the quality befitting of these titles. Despite taking a sweet time to get to Asuka, Ike retains many forms, all of which are fantastic, with his brave variant following in Ephraim's footsteps as a wonderful reverence to his late father. Ike looks just like the commander, and it makes sense for the young lad to emulate the man he admired so much, with Kita Senri giving special attention to the colours, as though the yellows and browns remain subdued, the blues around the armour and Ike's hair are remarkably dynamic and make for an excellent way to both honour and evolve the Grail mercenaries. Brave Ike wasn't the only instance of the Radiant hero getting an S-tier portrait, for after Ashnod went berserk, Ike picks up the medallion, and holy crap was Grail not joking about socially distancing from it. For those who aren't aware, Fallen Ike is a reference to the Cypher card where he went batshit bonkers, only instead of glowing red with rage, Fujisaka Kimihiko opted for a purple aura surrounding the fallen mercenary, as Ike looks practically soulless and zombie-like that is tremendously menacing thanks to the purple satin without juxtaposing the splendour of his vanguard ensemble. Additionally, the line work and shadows are very thick, which gives this mercenary an almost manga-like presence, and considering Ike was inspired by Guts from the Berserk manga, it feels like he's come full circle, and a fantastic tribute to both the card game and one of the best pieces of fiction ever created. Ike is always considered rather unique among the standard Fire Emblem lords, while Queen Elitzia for the most part fulfills the typical role, and much like her lord Ike, has 2 forms which I think are to die for, starting with by far my favourite Resplendent. Holy Ashira on high, did Elitzia receive a bountiful blessing from Lehosafheimer, as her outfit looks so unique with the insect wings, thorny leggings and waistline, feathered shoulder pads and many more elements which boast exceptional ingenuity, with tremendous colour choices that carries over her regal aesthetic, which when paired against the blacks contrast unbelievably well and show that Elitzia is a woman to be both feared and respected, as while yes she is a soft saint, she'll also whoop your ass into the afterlife. Niji Hayashi did a phenomenal job with her Resplendent form, and given that the only other work is Dancer Eldegan and Summer Hilda, along with Resplendent Raven, I pray that they continue to provide us with more material worthy of the gods. Once the fighting is finished, Elitzia decided to have a holiday in Hoshido, wearing such a beautiful kimono that retains elements of her queen attire present throughout her primary colours, that contrast courteously against her emerald locks, and around the upper torso. Her special trigger art is dazzling as fireworks supplement the situation seamlessly, and is packed to the brim with exceptional levels of detail, for Asatani Tomoyo was responsible in the conception of this masterpiece and once again proving to be my favourite freelancer in the entire game. The last of the lords, Makaya, along with her retainer Soph, look truly radiant when ready to pledge their wedding vows, as I'm always a sucker for a married couple, and seeing these 2 in such delightful dress wear just tugs at my heartstrings. Bias aside, I do love just how bright these gowns look, as they're much simpler than many of the other costumes couples have worn, which given their pair's rustic roots seems legit, and the way their primary colours not only complement the whites, but also harken back to their traditional outfit is a brilliant touch. Plus, since they resemble a very young couple, there's a certain charm to seeing them look so ceremonial, and like with Natasha, it's wonderful to see Makaya so blissful, even if Soph is clearly pining after Ike to this day. Tefesh oversaw their creation, and demonstrated considerable skill at making a pair who've had it too hard for too long look as if they don't have a care in the world, and makes for a perfect ending for these miracle makers. Another Telius duo that deserves to be preserved is Altina and her descendant Sanaki, as they get ready for the festive season, as just for being able to witness these 2 standing side by side and projecting such a divine and spellbinding aura from their presence alone is incredible. However, they went that extra mile with some very cool looking Christmas costumes that cleverly make alterations in specific areas so as to reflect their traditional designs and the season, with Sanaki having many of the lighter colours while Altina boasts a large assortment of garments for that supplementary disparity. Kita Senri once again contributes to the Italia Saga with both this and Altina's base design, and did a marvellous job at sticking to tradition while adding enough nuances to make for one of the most charming and well executed duo units in all of Asuka. As you'd expect, Sanaki couldn't go anywhere without being followed by her holy gods Sigrun and Tanith, and both of these bare neon beauties pull off wedding gowns so well as their standard armour was already very angelic in appearance, so having dresses that are far more streamlined and slick complements their designation and personalities. Though their outfits share many similarities, they have elements unique to each, with Sigrun bearing soft green spread throughout her dress and a feathered theme, whereas Tanith has much sharper attire and cool blues with a colour palette that seamlessly blends together to create an almost ritual-like aura, with Pikomaro making up for their mistake with Lloyd in spades, along with Matsan showcasing that they can do both casual and ceremonial clothes extremely well, with both holy gods looking utterly divine and perfectly suited to protecting the apostle no matter the occasion. While she may not be a descendant of the Holy Bloodline, Miss played a big part in Path of Radiance when it came to Lorenz medallion, and for Valentine's Day took it upon herself to look as if she were a member of Serenus Forest. My god, does Ike's sister look so beautiful when picking flowers, as the outfit feels like an extension of her familiar form and much more mature while still retaining her purity and innocence. In fact, the whole thing gives off maternal vibes thanks to the additional blues, pinks and whites, which supplements her tranquility and grace, with the flower headband being a lovely little accessory. Mawabe Sakura did this and Miss Vanilla design, encompassing soft lines and harmonious colour blending, making for a serene aesthetic which I find to be perfect for someone so pure in spirit. Speaking of looking rather maternal, Titania is unanimously considered to be the mother of the Grail mercenaries, and during Valentine's Day somehow ended up looking even more astonishing, which I didn't think was possible. Given that the occasion takes place at the end of winter, Titania chose to dress with a springtime vibe that's incredibly bright and warm, with an admittedly limited but cozy colour palette that showcases the simple beauty and elegance of this crimson night, while keeping in line with her traditional outfit and humble nature. She may not be one for formalities, but I do admire the slightly ceremonial design, with Wada Shichiko back to work their magic on her once again, which though not as commonly comprehensive, is an aspect of the artwork that I actually admire and works within the context of the banner, proving that no matter the situation, Titania will remain one of the most beautiful women in the Fire Emblem universe. Up until Ike took over, the Grail mercenaries consisted of primarily men, with the first new recruit being the Lady of Blades Mia, who thanks to Heroes gained a new BFF in the form of Lucina. This duo, while initially seeming a bit strange, is actually a reference to their interactions during the Tempest trials, and the two of them juxtapose each other really well. For Mia has a more athletic swimsuit, but with very bright colours, whereas Lucina dons a more traditional and cute costume that is dark and subdued, creating a nice sense of equilibrium, and their primary pose being a reference to Lucina and Krom's stance in many of the promotional work for Awakening. Once again, being a sick reference, bruh! Yoneyama Mai created this ult and has done all of Mia's forms, as well as being the only work they've done for Fire Emblem Heroes, so they certainly have her design down to a science, and it's nice to witness these otherwise obtuse interactions come to fruition. Another member of the mercenaries that has two X chromosomes was the shy halberdier Nephany, who by default is one of the most beautiful portraits in the whole game, and yet somehow one-upped herself when taken to the dance floor for a good old shindig. To some it may seem strange for Nephany to dress so glamorously given her confidence issues, but if you recall her support with Khalil, they acknowledge this dilemma, and is likely to be the basis for this form, as Nephany looks straight up celestial as a dancer, and though the colour scheme is almost identical to her default, including an addition of warmer colours and pink hue, helps to exacerbate Nephany's true beauty, plus making the dress so elaborate sticks with her theme of hiding behind her attire due to her insecurities. Hakan returns to design Nephany's dress with their signature style shining through once again, with unparalleled volumes of detail, and it's great to see this fierce halberdier get the glow up she deserves. Shortly after recruiting Neph and the gang, Zihawk also joined Ike's cause despite being born of Dain, and after seeing Lin pull it off so well, decided to take up ninjutsu almost effortlessly, as the transition to the oriental style falls in line with his profession, remaining simple and sleek but with extra details to increase its authenticity, and the colours are much brighter with greater variation between the shades of purple, plus small but very noticeable blues add that little bit of boldness to the getup. Kano Akira gave Zihawk his gear, and I adore the simplicity yet effectiveness of it all, and if any of the Hoshiden classes were somehow to make their way into a Tellius remake, I wouldn't be shocked to see this form of Zihawk return from the shadows. I'm honestly not surprised that Zihawk disowned Dain while Ashnod was in charge, as he's not called the Mad King for nothing despite Gangrel's protest to that title, as after touching Laurent's medallion, Ike and the gang collectively shat their pants upon his ascension. It's not a stretch to call Ashnod a literal monster, as there's so much power radiating from this madman through his mannerisms and the chaos energy he generates, having a downright demonic appearance and scarier than the wyvern he rides into battle. The dude is practically in ecstasy even when at death's door, and the desaturation of his skin despite looking so elated is a brilliant touch, with Daisuki Azuka being commissioned to commemorate Ashnod, most likely due to his work on Harden and the Black Knight, being in my opinion their magnum opus, and just as insane as the Mad King to put this much time and effort into these portraits. Even with the medallion, Ashnod was destined to lose, as there's no way in hell Takensu would fall, as even at his silliest, the King of Dragons doesn't fuck around, and given his status within the continent of Tellius, it's brilliant that the King of Dragons would look like Vlad Dracula Tepesh during Halloween, as his outfit is very sharp with elements that reflect both his dragon biology and vampiric features that work off each other impeccably, aided by the yellows and oranges that contrast against his primary black ensemble in such a spectacular fashion, reflecting his imperial importance yet remaining simple enough to not seem preposterous. Kita Senrei once again works with the Italia Saga and does a fantastic job at breathing new life into this old fossil. The Gintia wasn't the only Lagoose Kita crafted for Heroes, as they also commissioned Kinegis and Tiban's current ult, where he became a pirate and looked so dashing I'd happily be swept off my feet by him. When taking to the seas, Tiban's attire is essentially an inverse of his typical costume, having green bottoms with a beige and black top, as well as the scarf now covering his torso as opposed to waist, which is a nice way to make something different yet familiar, as well as portraying a more relaxed and easygoing side to Tiban, because God knows you don't want to piss him off. I also noticed that Pirate Tiban's art style is much closer to the Telia's official artwork and makes sense as to why Kita covers so much of the universe's applicants. 1 year later, the Raven clan decided to follow Tiban's lead, and while Nessala is cool, Vika looks fantastic, and it's nice to know that Heroes cares more about her than Radiant Dawn ever did. Compared to most of the salty sea dogs, Vika's attire is far more casual and down to earth, having rather dirty white and muted yellows, along with pretty loose and easygoing features that, while not exactly eye-catching, fits this bird of prey so well, given not only her background as a slave, but also given her chill attitude and general coolness factor, along with ravens being often associated as pirates of the sea to begin with. Plus, since her base design was so minimal, Narusu Uroko did an exceptional job at making this feel like an extension of her wardrobe rather than a completely out of left field choice of clothing. And I personally noticed them to take elements from their previous work and intertwine them into Vika's belongings to create a really cool outfit that had more love and effort put into it than the folks who conceptualized this vixen in the first place. And before we look at the shallow end of the gene pool, I have to talk about Duke Tannis, as while I think he's fittingly extravagant, his damaged art is what seals the deal. Just look at it. This is one of the most meme-worthy portraits in all of Heroes. It's absolutely absurd, but it's also rather glorious in how ostentatious Oliver appears, and something truly beautiful for both the right and wrong reasons. What's not so beautiful is the youngest of the Herons Leanne, as during both Telia's games, she literally looks like an angel, and it's a crying shame that Heroes somewhat butchered this bird. But then again, this is what you get for trying to fix perfection. Now, there's a lot to like about Leanne's portraits, as the silky smooth line work is amazing, and I do love her graceful mannerisms, plus certain colours look really nice. However, many of the whites and yellows look muted and have a grey tint as if she's sick, with her expression seeming disinterested and dull. What I find to be most disappointing is that Yura, who had worked on the likes of Sonia and her brother Rayson, somehow screwed up this serene songbird, that while perfectly fine on its own, I feel falls flat when matched against the glory of Leanne's origins, and can no longer be considered the pretty one of the bunch. I may have praised Alencia twice already, but her Path of Radiance battle armor doesn't do her any justice, as it feels as if she's regressed to the point where Saniki would seem like the adult upon their introduction. If it wasn't obvious by that previous statement, my biggest issue concerns Her Highness's unnatural youthful appearance, as her body is extremely petite and has a baby face that, while most certainly cute, fails to reflect her stature as queen or even princess for that matter. Granted, I'm well aware this is based on her Path of Radiance incarnation, and to give credit where it's due, the line work is so lenient you can barely see it. However, even back then, she was clearly an adult and had a bolder figure to her physique. Plus, I noticed there to be an over-reliance on orange that makes many aspects of her armor blend into one another, with even her hair lacking its usual prominence, though this doesn't surprise me, given that Kipu also did Lin's art, with those particular issues present once again, and no wonder as to why Ashnod had no desire to battle this baby! Speaking of babies, Saniki might be the Empress of Benion, but compared to the monarchs of each country, she might as well be an infant, and man does her hero's artwork lack whatever dignity she once had. Now, just to be clear, this isn't the case of Saniki looking too young, as that would be oxymoronic. What I take issue with relates to Saniki's colours or lack thereof, for the Empress always had very sharp, saturated colours to express her importance and power. However, she seems to have lost her energy, as her colours have become faded, that caused the outfit to lack its initial segmentation, despite the additional levels of detail on the pattern work. This leads to a design that's far too restrained and safe, given that the yellows and whites are extremely underplayed, and is one of 3 whites by Tomio Kajiro, who did her bridesmaid outfit as well as the Cena's bunny attire. And based on that, it's clear they weren't quite on their A game, and shows that Saniki's heritage was questionable right from the start. Rounding out Fire Emblem's first 3D foray is my favourite villain in the franchise, the Black Knight, or thanks to one of the biggest boneheaded moves by Intelligent Systems, Zelkius, which sport a huge plot twist for many fans who haven't had the privilege to play these games because Nintendo are stingy when it comes to legacy titles. Now, the artwork itself is wonderful, as Daisuki Azuka did both his full body and helmetless form, which to be fair does appear in their final battle briefly, but it's really dumb to have this as Zelkius' debut form, not only for spoiler purposes, but because he's already got a perfectly primed set of crimson armor ready to go that would have kept his identity a secret and be far more enticing. Perhaps I'm nitpicking too much as the cat's out of the bag at this point, but I feel like it's a huge missed opportunity and not very well thought out. But then again, I can say that for many aspects of Radiant Dawn, so perhaps it's more appropriate than I gave it credit for. Now we're busting out the big guns, ladies and gentlemen. As excluding Echoes, it's time to cover the 3DX era of Fire Emblem, and due to the success of the corresponding games, Heroes has made it this mission to parade them around like the newest iPhone, as Awakening alone has over 70 characters and counting, and because I'm biased as fuck, of course I'm gonna gush over Sumia's art, because I'll never pass up an opportunity to indulge my best girl.
Yes!
Despite their inconsistent eminence, Picomaro did a splendid job of capturing the beauty and playful innocence within Sumia, with far greater focus on her colours, with pronounced purples to complement her soft pink armour and brunette hair, with the petals and feathers being a lovely little detail that symbolise her occupation and pastime. The line work and components going into her curls is absolutely amazing, and I love how Picomaro stayed true to her nervous mannerisms through body language and facial expressions, with the only problem being that she doesn't have any other forms as of now. But maybe that's a good thing, since I don't want to risk going bankrupt if she busts out a bikini. Sumia may not be the most notable White Wing, but her BFF Cordelia is always on the front page of Pegasi Monthly, with this amount of fame granting her a Somerset, which is particularly steamy, that should finally get Krom's attention, as this swimwear looks one of a kind that strikes a nice balance between sex appeal and fun factor, and despite a very straightforward colour set, the bright reds still manage to project themselves against her splendourous skin, and softer colours used for marine life. Not only that, but I theorised that this outfit was inspired by her granddaughter due to the prominence of reds and general aesthetic, and the artist Mayo manufactured her bridal form and Robin's bikini bottoms, so they were clearly in their comfort zone when crafting the perfect piece for this Pegasus night. Let's set the Wayback Machine for a few seconds ago to discuss Robin, who has the benefit of both genders to milk until her intelligence system is literally swimming in money, with both forms having a Grima variant, though my preference leans towards his male persona because I'm all about that edge game. Contrary to the vast assortment of fallen forms, I noticed there to be a lack of focus towards the dark aura resonating from the fell one, being rather subdued and only encapsulating part of the character's frame. However, to compensate this conundrum, the lines and muscle tone is amazing, making for extremely dynamic and overbearing artwork perfectly suited for Grima. Okuma Yugo decided to tackle this trial, and they did an amazing job, being noticeably different from their usual offerings, which I view to favour photorealism, showing that this artist is considerably versatile and should be spared Grima's wrath. Well, it looks like I can finally start discussing the true protagonists of Fire Emblem 13, beginning with Krom, who decided to follow Lee's example and take up a bow upon his ascension to legendary status. I find Krom to be almost unrecognisable given his extremely lavish design, that while somewhat jarring, does emanate the essence of a king, plus underneath the accessories, parts of his standard outfit remain intact, keeping him somewhat grounded. The choice of colours is also fairly varied, having primarily blacks and blues, with gold and orange to add further flavour to his garb, with the art style by Hino Shinanosuke portraying a far more striking sovereign, adding to his presence and power, who also brought forth Lee's legendary form, and is a terrific deviation of the exalt truly worthy of a king. The praise doesn't stop there for the Shepherd, as Krom has also received a resplendent form and is an excellent example of visual storytelling. Krom's newest design takes inspiration from the kingdom of Muspel, and it looks smoking, if I say so myself, with the blacks and blues contrasting so well against the gold and fiery reds, simultaneously illustrating the composed side of Krom, plus the temper and bloodlust that resides within him, made all the more poetic when you realise that Krom's cape resembles the wings of the bird that was present when Emeren fell, acting as a brilliant callback to that event, and considering it was at this point where Krom was at his most dangerous, having them bear bright reds, and thus by spreading his wings he brings forth his true nature, was a stroke of genius. Heck, even his arm is starting to turn into lava as the corruption continues. Good lord, it really is like poetry, and shoutouts to Penikoa for what is in my opinion their best work yet. Opposing her father's edgy ensemble, Lucina has a more wholesome wardrobe, with her spring set being the cutest thing to come out of Heroes and my favourite bunny babe by far. Glad to know that even after suffering through Grima's wrath, Lucina's not above the occasional cosplay. The Spring Assault's bunny belongings are very soft and far frillier than the often sexualized alternatives, which I think complements her slim frame while excavating the childlike innocence buried deep within Lucina, and having a rather diverse colour palette with very smooth line work that helps to make the design a bit more stylized, and it's just so pretty. This was Tomio Kojiro's first contribution to Heroes, and my favourite selection of their showreel, as seeing this worn-out warrior look so chipper and upbeat is extremely heartwarming, to the point where I'm sure even Grima would be hard-pressed to be mad at her.
Why, you little... Oh, look at him cowering, just like the boy. I can't stay mad at such a helpless little mammal. I'm gonna get you for that, you little scamp! Here, take that, Pinchy!
The Exalted Bloodline doesn't end with Krom's future witness, as Lissa, like her niece, looks so cute in a seasonal outfit, as she's off to deliver presents to all the nice children of Ylisse. So it's good to know that Severa's getting cold for Christmas, that little shit!
Shut up!
The notion of Lissa dressing up for the holiday speaks for itself, and compliments her lovely and sweet spirit to a T, and though the outfit is almost like a colour swap of her routine dress, I think it's lovely, and the fact that she has a bell for an axe has a very nice ring to it. The artwork by Umiyu Gesso has exceptional shading and colour tones, adding depth to the simplicity of Lissa's design that, while not my favourite from their anthology, is still a fantastic work of art, and here's hoping Lissa gets a large wardrobe to strut about in. The future generation of Ulysses also made their way to Asgard, including Inigo, who followed in his mother's footsteps and hit the dance floor with a delightful little number that should grant him much better luck with the ladies. As a performing artist, Inigo's outfit seems like a fusion of his mummy's work and festive form, making for a simple yet very stylish and somewhat dignified getup that helps to give Inigo a sense of class and professionalism. It probably comes as no surprise that Tsukano Kumiko worked on this incarnation given that they were responsible for his Norian persona, and despite lacking the usual vigorous aura, this is a costume I'm sure would make his mother proud before they both die of embarrassment. God forbid she ever looks in the mirror. Ulysses has always had a tense relationship with Plegia, though that didn't stop Faja and Henry from joining Krom's cause, and were gifted with some nifty outfits upon being selected from the Summoning Stone. Henry became a happy vampire which, despite his bloodlust and line of work, has one of the most charming Halloween costumes to date, as being a creature of the night, aligns his complexion with a really sharp suit, with just the right amount of colour to make him seem almost gentlemanly while remaining a danger to anyone within a 5-meter radius, thanks to the almost fire-like cape. Plus the Grima symbol on the coffin is a nice touch, and ghosts popping out upon special trick activation gets a thumbs up from me. Currently this is the only alternative offering Kusugi Toku has done, and they are very creative while excelling in shading, with Henry's Transylvanian transformation being their crowning achievement. Looks like Faja was finally able to win over Robin's heart, as this seductive sorceress commissioned Sencha to fashion her wedding dress, and holy naga did she strike gold with her choice of designer, as Faja has in my opinion the best bridal all on display. Unlike the majority of newlyweds, Faja's dress is very dark and striking, having an assortment of purples combined with muted golds and a bright orange bouquet that, while not exactly wholesome, fits Faja perfectly and brings out just how beautiful but simultaneously mysterious and odd she is, which I think adds to her charm, and having the flowers combust during her special attacks is a detail I didn't even know I wanted. Sencha's style of outstanding levels of detail are on full display during Faja's wedding, and to me is the finest feat they've accomplished, and shows that being different has its perks, along with big guns and a big booty. While Plegia are the primary enemy of Ulysses, Farm became a pain in Krom's coccyx as the Conqueror Warheart was dead set on putting the prince in his place, and if Heroes is anything to go by, he certainly looks like he means business. Warlord has always had a garish glamour about him, and here he resembles the devil himself, as there's a lot more discrepancy in regards to colour tones that are able to make the man truly demonic, almost as if he were covered in blood, and the lack of irises only add to the creep factor. Plus for his special trigger, he's virtually summoning the powers of hell to send his foes into the afterlife, and I love every pixel of it. Sueta Epe did Warheart's hero's debut, and their art style complements his attire immaculately, exhibiting how much detail can be achieved with minimal assortment of colours, and staying true to the Conqueror's reputation, as he could easily defeat any opponent just by looking at them. Now we come to an interesting crossroads, as the next model up for discussion is stuck between the good and bad end of the spectrum with fallen Mel Morgan. As though his outfit is excellent, as if the fell dragon is slowly overtaking his entire frame reminiscent of the DLC, with a beautiful blend of colours, what on earth is up with the lad's head? I don't know if I'm just disorientated, but I feel like the size of his head is hugely inconsistent, as normally his hair takes up too much of the boy's skull, and in other instances, it looks like the damn thing is too big for his neck to support, making for a very uneven and uncanny shape that I can't take the least bit seriously. I could easily be nitpicking too much, and there's more to admire than admonish to Itsuki Mitsu's design, but until someone puts a bag over his head, it's going to continue to rub me the wrong way. I also have to bring mention to Resplendent Lucina, which created quite the stir due to Himuka Yuji's choice to revert her back several years, which, while typical of their art style, didn't sit well with a lot of people, and I can see why given how drastic of a change it is to her design. Now personally, I actually really like her resplendent costume, as despite a similar composition to her standard clothes, the colours are so bright and beautiful, with disparities to the cape and shoulders that not only fit the theme of being in Logenheimer, but also call back to the butterflies often present in Awakening's cutscenes, with Himukai making her look like she lights up the sky, and is very sweet. Plus I can somewhat understand the choice to make Lucina so little, as her supports reveal the young lord to be very childlike due to her inability to be one growing up. Therefore, it's within the realm of possibility to picture herself as an infant, but I think the design alone was enough to reflect this if some of the fan art is any evidence to go off. So while having more than likely good intentions, I think Himukai got slightly carried away, but all in all did a great job with Lucina's fairy form. While the previous child units had designs that were a mix of quality, Nore simply cannot catch a break, because sweet lord did she go overboard in trying to get the ideal summer shape, as by default Faja's daughter has a rather petite and fragile frame which echoes her personality. Well, half of it. For some unexplained reason, Nore now supports some serious muscle definition and extremely jarring breasts that might as well be made of silicone and too big for a body type. And while the actual outfit is otherwise fine with some nice nods to her archer attire, it does feel a little too minimal given how fearful Nore is normally, and while Kusakihara Toshiyuki has done some great work on the likes of Mustafa and Nore's facial features are fantastic, the majority of their catalogue emulates these same issues, so perhaps that's just how they roll. Nore's poor choice of clothing seems to be a genetic defect, as during the winter, Faja completely lost the plot by wearing an entirely inappropriate ensemble given the climate, and was somehow still able to pass as an armor unit. Look, unless her nipples are so cold they can cut diamonds, she's not going to be tanking any damage with that on. Pretty obvious at this point, but Faja's lack of clothing is just plain silly and trying way too hard to be stimulating. And sure, I'm digging the stockings and cape, but the fact that she's practically bearing it all comes off as desperate, and these portraits and the costume itself aren't particularly special in regards to colours, shading, line work, or design. And while it can be seen as a play on her Robin support where she tries to act normal but comes off as strange, I think Washimoto needed to reel it back and learn that less is often more. Henry continues to share the same fate as his Plegian partner, as I'm not a fan of his normal form and makes me wonder how the same artist who turned him into a vampire somehow screwed up the template. I guess you could say this is cause for concern? Upon initial inspection, Henry seems pretty standard, but for whatever reason now hosts a brighter colour scheme. And yeah, the dude's a riot, don't get me wrong, but I personally feel this much vibrance doesn't suit his design, all the while having really dull and bog standard poses in each portrait, which takes away from this sorcerer's surrealism, feeling more like generic anime protagonist number 20,564. This is upsetting as Kasugi Toku always makes their work look really dynamic in each stance, as well as having a more jagged approach to their line work to make the characters look more distinct. Traits Vanilla Henry severely lacks and is better left to hide away in the crow's nest because God knows he looks bland enough to blend in with the wallpaper. Achieving perfection is a task that takes years of dedication to the craft, and you're sure to stumble along the way, something Cordelia knows too well, as her first attempt at aiding the heroes of Asuka didn't exactly end well, and is something I'm sure she'd want to repress, much like her feelings for Krom. Cordelia has always had a bold yet graceful getup, but now she looks like she's bored out of her mind with an extremely desaturated choice of colours and deadpan expression that aren't charming in the slightest, with the style looking somewhat similar to that of a comic book, but lacking any of the depth or energy, not helped by Cordelia's features leaning more towards a teenager as opposed to a mature woman. And though Ueda Hamahito's style has always been more lighthearted and simplistic, none of the energy and charm shines through, and makes for the only version of this pristine Pegasi to fail on just about all fronts. Finally, let's end Awakening's evaluation with a character that's been present from the start, but finally took to the field on the 3DS, Anna, because man oh man did she become a tight one when setting up shop in Asuka. Now, the idea of Anna acting as a merchant goes without saying, and having her carry around the different equipment players can obtain in Awakening is pretty cool, but Christ does she look so generic to the point where from the neck down, you wouldn't be able to tell this was the money-loving maiden. And yes, while her NPC attire is generally simpler than her battle garment, even those display a greater sense of style. In fact, the colours are pretty much muted, which is odd given Kai's previous projects. While a genuinely nice idea with some clever callbacks, this secret seller isn't going to turn a profit anytime soon, and is hoping one of her many sisters can finally get the family's reputation back into the green. And here we have the big one, ladies and gentlemen, for before Echoes was released and Three Houses was conceived, Fire Emblem Fates was the game everyone was talking about during Hero's debut, and as a result, currently has the highest number of deployed units to date, with over 100 recipients to its name, so crack open a cold one people, we're gonna be here for a while. Corrin is going to start off this showcase, and unlike the Tenacious Tactician, their female form is where the ocean's grey waves flow like a river thanks to her Adrift ult, looking like an angel that's so bright and pure, donning a dress comprised of very soft and dreamlike colours, magnified by her delicate expressions, with so much detail added to her hair and ribbons, acting as a remarkable contrast to Sensu's work on Bride Tharja. Plus, while similar to Azora's outfit, this sought-after sibling sheds a bit more skin, adding the extra spice to this dainty little dragon. Of course, no one rocks Valite fashion better than Azora, and being inspired by her mother's drapes, became a Valite songstress and my favourite of all her forms, having such an elegant design that flows like a river, and a nice balance of mysticism and royalty, being clearly inspired by Arate, but also standing as an outfit unique to her daughter thanks to the colour scheme and softer composition. Barring her resplendent version, Kaya has done every piece of artwork for Azora in Heroes, and they really knocked it out of the park with her legendary manifestation. Though I must confess, due to the restricted colour choices, there are times when it can be hard to make out some of the finer elements, but nitpicking aside, it's delightful to see my best girl in Fate looking like a true queen and making my heart sing. Long before Arate made it into Heroes, her sister Makoto arrived during the Adrift banner, being just as tranquil and divine and proof that even in death, Makoto remains a MILF to this day. Upon her ascension, Makoto got an update to her design that pulls inspiration from Valor, granting her a heavenly and feathered gown, while ribbons effortlessly float across her frame with soft whites that are supplemented by vibrant golds and turquoise. While this gown lacks the same majesty as her mortal form, I feel it to better suit her class line, with Ito Mise bringing her highness back to life, and I noticed to be more extravagant than usual, as the water and butterflies are very nice touches that I'm sure will make her children blissfully happy to see her. With that not-so-subtle segue, two of her underlings got some awesome alternative attire, starting with Hanoka, who stole Reina's spot as a designated Kinshi Knight and rocked that uniform so well, I'm tempted to have her run the class next time I play Birthright. Truthfully speaking, Hanoka's Kinshi outfit is literally just the class attire with no real change or influence from her base design, minus maybe the colour scheme being more saturated. However, that's not a problem, as Hanoka has always looked radical, and the class costume comes off as incredibly natural, for the headpiece and shoulders reflect her lineage, while the rest of her design draws emphasis towards her role and resolve, making for a rather straightforward, but nonetheless epic ult by Chico, especially in regards to shadows and different tones, and for the longest time she was my ideal bow flyer until Claude came along and made her just as irrelevant as she is to face narrative. Takumi also seems to have a hard time no matter the story route, and his resplendent redesign took this to heart in a figurative and literal sense, giving the prince an especially creative costume that turns Takumi's suffering into success, because God knows he's butthurt enough as it is. Having hell be the basis for Takumi's new form mirrors his corrupted state in Conquest so spectacularly, and I love the contrast between the lifeless and torn exterior with a glowing chest of jealousy and hate-filled aura, showing how Takumi at this point is a walking corpse while his worst traits take hold of his heart, and it's a perfect balance between old and new. This Hellspawn was birthed by Hole, acting as the first of their creations, though hopefully not the last, as they can do some awesome villain designs or fallen forms. And while we're here, I have to mention Takumi's New Year form, because he's called the Prince of Soup.
Where are you right now? I'm at Soup! What do you mean you're at Soup? I mean I'm at Soup! What store are you in? I'm at the Soup store! Why are you buying clothes at the Soup store? Fuck you!
The Norians got their fair share of seasonal variants, Camilla above all, as this game gave her so many versions, pretty soon we'll have enough Camillas to take on Thanos. And since there's so many princesses to pick from, I couldn't mediate between a brave attire and a drift outfit, as the former focuses on taking Camilla's base design and making it softer and graceful, to reflect her doting and motherly nature, with even more detail gone into the trim that is so pristine and pretty badass too, not to mention being less overt and revealing, but still managing to show off just enough flesh to unsheath anyone's sword.
How wonderful.
Kozaki Yusuke decided to stop working on OCs, and they did a tremendous job at fixing what I felt plagued her base design, and if that wasn't enough, her drift outfit, similar to her sister's, crafts her highness to look so welcoming and gentle. I love the simplicity of it all and how the colours accentuate her comforting yet seductive facade, while containing small details here and there, and it's nice not having to see Camilla put her tits on display at any opportunity. This is one of 3 designs Mikuru did for Camilla, all of which are excellent, but this is easily my top pick, and shows that while Fates did get a bit too many banners, the Drift event gave us the good stuff and then some. Despite being at odds in regards to who gets to invade Corrin's personal space, there's been a ton of wonderful fan art depicting the two princesses together. Something Intelligent Systems must have noticed and felt the two of them would work well together sailing the 7 seas, and holy shit were they not wrong. These outfits and the overall pirate theme does wonders for both sisters, bringing out the badass side of Hanoka while mirroring her Hoshidan attire very well, but remaining unique and using an anchor as an arrowhead is inspired, while Camilla, like her Adrift outfit, gets to flaunt her beauty and grace without having to get her tits out, while still having elements of danger and power that showcase her true nature. Additionally, the very casual approach to their clothes generates a very soft and fun atmosphere, reflective of their relationship, and I adore how their gentle whites complement the duo's primary colours, as well as using very potent shadows to make it all blend together seamlessly. This is the second of Toshiro Amebe's work concerning heroes, and pretty much cements their talents regarding delicacy and purity, along with exceptional colour tones and shading, and gifting us with the absolute best kind of bountiful booty. Mikura also doted on the youngest of the Norian royal family twice with her summer and bath time versions, both of which are just the prettiest little portraits, but I lean more towards her hot spring selection, as it's neat to see that Elise has gone from a cinnamon roll to a Danish, and I love how bright and sweet she looks, having a very simple and delicate design with soft pinks and purples that make her seem so happy and uplifting, plus carrying ducklings around is just too much for my heart to take, and fits her playful and innocent personality so well, with Mikuru's signature shading giving her attire that little extra depth, as well as making Elise's face so charming. If you dyed her outfit blue, she could easily pass as a platelet. Rounding out this extensive family tree is the Crown Prince Xander, who also has 2 alts I love, but for now, I'll only acknowledge his spring suit. As while the costume is certainly odd considering his stature, Xander looks both hilarious and charming, which I'm sure were his retainer's idea, given the antics that they get up to. Similar to Minerva's spring design, Xander presents ringleader vibes, and I love how the attire stays true to his typical colour scheme, but distributes them in a way that creates an inverse of his armour, and a brilliant juxtaposition. Plus, despite being so silly, the prince's eminence and splendour make him nonetheless dashing, as Sukane Kumiko returns to renovate another Kamu archetype, and the brightest of their designs, that even at their goofiest remains as pristine as the prince they're portraying. With the main characters done and dusted, the retainers are next up, starting with the hero of justice Arthur, who looks like he's literally leaped off the page, as this version of the hapless hero consists of very harsh shadows clashing against the simple and bold colours to really bring out the exaggerated actions of Elisa's retainer, with his stance being just as dynamic to the point where I'm just waiting for him to go plus ultra and beyond. While compared to the rest of the game's catalogue, Arthur looks fairly jarring, I think the style suits him impeccably, with Mandako doing a bang-up job, but an understandable shame that this is the only time they contributed to the roster. Then again, I doubt anyone will want to share any similarities with Arthur, given his not-so-lucky streak when it comes to literally everything. Going from heroism to thievery, Niall somehow managed to earn himself a resplendent form, and man, what a steal! That though not too dissimilar from his regular rags, the golden trim is unmistakably from Muspel, with the cape acting as a wonderful contrast to his otherwise dark and elusive attire. Other aspects like the feathers around his knees and shoulders, along with almost hypnotic colours for the cloak and spiked neck piece, come together to make an outfit that feels familiar yet different, and definitely one of the cooler resplendent forms that reeks of Sukane Kumiko in the best way possible. Because man, do they know how to rock every shade of red under the sun.
Oh, yes!
Corin's butler and alternate universe Sebastian decided to see what all the fuss was about during Halloween, going above and beyond with his costume, for the devil is truly in the detail. Now, upon initial inspection, Jacob seems to be in a simple if somewhat tattered suit, but upon closer examination, many of the garments and additional elements are references to Dr. Frankenstein's monster, what with the stitching around the arm and face, the ball and chain around his foot, the electricity for bowstrings, etc., with even a lab coat of sorts draped across his shoulder, all of which comes together to create an astute tribute and unique design that suits the Noyan landscape and the best of Fujiwara Ryo's work, as he is simply one hell of a monster. While Jacob was busy being put together, Kagero embraced
the enemy
and dressed as a maid during the spooky season, though I'm sure she'll turn people red instead of blue in this uniform, for Ryoma's retainer looks astonishingly natural as a maid given her strict and professional approach to life, and having the traditional yellows complement her all-black ensemble adds that touch of variety to this domestic damsel. Plus, unlike her other forms which I feel go a bit overboard in regards to sex appeal, which does have its perks mind you, I admire the streamlined and classy aesthetic while still displaying her lovely legs and having Cubun's artistic touch shine through when she pops the cork. Just look at the lighting that reflects off her body as if the wine were the blood of Christ. Truly magnificent if you ask me, and hopefully not the last time Kagero will be willing to expand her dresser. Since Kagero couldn't find the time to carry out her duties as a ninja, Hana picked up the slack, and it turned out for the best, as her ninjutsu outfit looks so good she may as well forget the way of a samurai. God knows she's never going to outclass Ryoma. Hana has always had a bright and playful design, which holds true despite the different designation, as this costume is really cute with some sweet little features like a kitsune mask and what I assume to be cat ears, with soft white and a subtle purple hue throughout the portraits to add to her charm. Not to mention, while sometimes Enkyo Yuchihiro makes their models look too childlike, I think they hit the nail on the head with Hana, and having her axes light up upon special triggers shows this is a perfect blend of dainty, yet dangerous. That's not the only time Enkyo was able to bring out the best in the Hoshidans, as they gave Selkie the chance to celebrate the new year in such an adorable little number that makes the future look brighter than ever. Selkie has always been a bundle of joy and energy, so having her wear a kimono will cause anyone's heart to fluctuate. And I admire the ceremonial appeal given that she's a fox, or kitsune to be precise, an animal that has deep roots in East Asian mythology, so the context and costume go hand in hand, and my god are the colours so beautiful, supplementing such warmth as if she were wrapped in a soft spring cloud, with a clever use of reds and blues to accolade her majestic ambience, though I'm sure Selkie just wore it because it looked fluffy.
Yay!
Enkyo has established experience with Selkie, and here they perfected her presence, and next to Bright Ninian is my favourite of their artwork, and a wonderful way to end our admiration of Fates, as from this point on, the level of quality will fall faster than Scarlet did on her way to Valor, and last time I checked, it didn't end well. While Corin was lucky enough to escape the bottom tier, Zora is not so fortunate as her resplendent configuration is in what I would personally refer to as splendid, as I discern this to be little more than a colour swap. Granted, the dress itself is fine and very similar to Gunthara's attire, and I do love how Kagage makes the blues comparable to the ice you'd see in a cave, which I find spellbinding. But on Zora, the dress just doesn't feel special or too different from her normal wardrobe, which is a shame as utilising more gold could have really helped, and hell, a different realms like Johosheimer host an enormous amount of possibilities. But alas, life gives Zora the short end of the stick once again. While Corin's mother looked amazing during her voyage to Aska, their adoptive father remains a fuck ugly monster that somehow makes his disgusting blob form seem like a step up after what Heroes did to him in that stupid smile. Garen's design, while a little garish, I've always appreciated due to his imposing form and menacing sensation. But within this app, the King of Nord looks about as threatening as a wet fart. Thanks to Soeda Epe's botched plastic surgery, he's got such a goofy grin and some of the strangest poses. Plus, like with Arden, Garen's design being primarily covered in black meant there's only so much detail to divulge, and loses what charm the king configurated. Heck, they somehow managed to make his colours even more muted to further embarrass an already crappy villain. I dread to speculate how sucky Valadar may turn out when he finally decides to show up. The royal siblings don't get off scot-free either, as while Elise and Sakura looked adorable in the hot springs, the eldest sisters might as well be shriveled up prunes, as Hanoka is just plain awkward in a bathrobe, and while that might be the point, unlike the other attendants, even the colour scheme is basic as fuck, almost as if she just happened to wander onto the photo shoot, though I'll give the artist Fu Midori credit for their special trigger art, as they really did make the water look like it was scalding hot. Camilla has the opposite problem, as while I do like her bathrobes and her hairstyle, the princess's face is all kinds of wrong, from the size to the shape of the chin, to the eyes, lips, and even her eyebrows look like they're trying to run away before being consumed by a larger than necessary cleavage, which makes me wonder how she doesn't lose 5 HP every turn due to back problems. Now this alone isn't the worst thing in the world, but since this outfit is purposely minimal, it only draws further attention to its flaws, as even the art style doesn't feel right, given lacks previous and far superior offerings. Looks like the hot air got to both of these sisters' heads, because clearly they weren't feeling 100% that day. Ryoma was also part of the bathhouse banner, but he didn't falter when taking a dip, though I don't think he got the hang of being a flyer, as his legendary variant looks like they just slapped on the elements of the Kinshi Knight class without properly incorporating them into his outfit, making for what I feel to be a pretty uninspired and rather ludicrous regalia. I can understand not wanting to stray from his base form, but unless I'm missing something, all I notice are new shoulder pads and a headpiece, which is the absolute bare minimum and really disappointing, as there's a lot that could be done to make Ryoma resemble that of a peacock or dragon that still fits the theme of the class. And while Kitasemi did a great job with his first formation, I wouldn't put it past someone to assume that this was photoshopped, and is a really forgettable ensemble. But imagine being able to wield Rajinto as a Kinshi Knight in Birthright, as if that game wasn't easy enough already. Gunter unfortunately hit rock bottom twice, as going from the Bottomless Canyon into Heroes didn't do him any favours, as running parallel to Jagan, Gunter's age is on display for all to see, as Yamada Akihiro turned this veteran into a fossil due to his smaller frame and really dull armour, as the purple hue that accompanied this Norian is now gone and the equipment lacks various shades of black and purple to help segment each section, not helped by the fact that Gunter seems to have caught a bad case of jaundice and is practically at death's door. Heck, even his hair is much lighter, which doesn't help his pension plan, and while the sketchbook aesthetic does somewhat complement his decade's worth of deeds, the composition feels incomplete and lacks any of the nuances that made this great knight an ideal retainer. And those comparisons to Jagan were done purposely due to both of them sharing the same artist, though Gunter definitely ended up aging better than the OG advanced class. After what feels like forever, we finally reach Fate's final stretch, and talk about stumbling at the finish line, as it's such a shame that Rinka has to be our final Fates featurette, since for the most part her artwork is amazing. I love her muscle detail with abs you could grind meat on. The shadows and photorealism help to add so much depth to her body composition, which combined with her already unique design, displays a dreadnought of a woman who could eat you alive and is so awesome. But what in Naga's name is up with her chest? Like, I know Rinka was never flat-chested, even with those bandages concealing her breasts, but Heroes once again makes chest augmentation mandatory, and it suddenly appears as if her tits are made of plastic and literally glued to her torso, which is really off-putting and a complete misunderstanding of her design. Fuck it, it's just plain stupid. Rinka suffers from Nori syndrome minus the schizophrenia, which doesn't surprise me, as Kuwasakihira Toshiyuki operated on both of them. And what's most upsetting is that they were so close to giving us such a brilliant rendition of the Flame Tribe fighter, but screwed up so bad in one area that brings the entire ensemble down and only exacerbates one of the biggest problems Heroes has concerning female physiology. Then again, given her bulk, maybe she uses those medals to cushion incoming damage, because if Faja can use her assets to be an armor unit, anything's possible. Now, my esteemed viewers, we've reached the current apex of the Fire Emblem timeline with 3 houses, which despite being published after Heroes Authentication, has quite the number of additions to the catalogue, totaling in over 40 combatants as of now, which is sure to double in the near future. And what better way to break us in than with both the Enlightened and Immaculate One, as they take to the beach to spread the good word of the church and obtain many new recruits for a multitude of reasons, 4 in particular. Truth be told, while Bida's bikini is bog standard, Rhea's swimsuit is utterly divine, as I adore how it retains the beauty and elegance of her Archbishop attire, with the crown of flowers being a lovely addition, and the way Q-Boom makes her bathing suit flow like the ocean, with very faint but gentle and warm colours, is heavenly, finding an excellent balance between stylish and stimulating, and the only reason as to why I would ever play Silver Snow again.
Giggity.
Having a duo unit of the Professor and Archbishop is no coincidence, as Sophis is the key variable in their relationship, and you can bet your booty that she would get in on the action during December, and oh boy does she shine like a star, as this deity is so charming in her Christmas dress, as being covered in ornaments and decorations while sitting on a sack of presents is just so jolly, and witnessing Sophis display such an upbeat exterior is incredibly heartwarming. Though there is nothing subtle about her ensemble, it matches Sophis' authoritative attitude, and despite a rather rudimentary range of colours, the tones and shadows are amazing, granting significant depth, and it's nice to see that Maya Pompon can strike gold twice with the same character, and no wonder as to why Rhea wanted her back so badly. While Rhea and Sophis may seem like gods, they have a long and bloody history spanning centuries, with the man responsible for most of Ceros' strife being the King of Liberation Nemesis, whose artwork reflects the quality of his finale. The monster behind the incident at Xanadu has always had an interesting and dark design, resembling that of a berserker and hero, now being made as threatening as possible, for Nemesis pertains a much bleaker palette and very thick lines surrounding him that really pop out as if he emerged from the bowels of hell, complemented by the sword of the creator casting a radiant hue across his body, showcasing the power this murderer can muster. The level of detail on his muscles and armor is amazing, and because of how bold his portraits are, he gives off a manga aesthetic which doesn't surprise me, given that Fallen Ike was handled by the same artist, Fujisaka Kimihito, and further proof that one day everything is going to have a Berserk reference. While Nemesis was once the greatest threat to Fodland, in present-day Azura Moon, Edelgard is the current monster terrorizing the continent, and I mean that literally, as without Byleth and her friends to sustain her humanity, she lets her desires sort her heart and goes so far as to become a husk that is equal parts disgusting as it is beautiful. Now, I've always loved Edelgard's Hegemon form, as it looks like a cosmic horror and the type of shit you'd see in Bloodborne, but now her portraits portray the assimilation process and are nonetheless spellbinding. From the colours to the formation of the dark substance, her special trigger looking like an EX Hadouken, the absolute glee Edelgard is going through, it's all incredible, and the way the material envelops parts of her body like a symbiotic life form is truly remarkable and reminds me of a certain black-suited anti-hero.
Now, you're gonna pay. From now on, we're poison to you, Spider-Man. That's why we call ourselves Venom.
Clover K was the one who brought this monster to life, and considering beforehand all they did was Brady and Christmas Felix, I am shocked at the step up in quality, as this currently stands as my favourite incarnation of the Emperor and the best set of portraits to accompany Fire Emblem 16. The corresponding banner and story route that brought about her huskness also showcased Dimitri at his most unstable, and proved Felix right in calling him the Boar Prince, as compared to many fallen heroes, Dimitri's tainted transformation is slightly more subtle regarding dark details, but is strangely effective, as while his attire hasn't changed, the colour scheme is noticeably muted, and his complexion is extremely pale, as if he were barely alive at this point and completely encased in darkness, with his fur coat seeming like it's a part of him and that he has truly become a monster, with small details like an eyeball and a hilt of his lance that could very well be his own acting as a phenomenal Easter egg, and how during his special trigger, he's at his most dangerous and covered in negative energy, while when damaged, everything begins to lighten as he'll soon be at peace. It really is the little things in life, and simultaneously marks the debut of Senna to Heroes Ensemble of Artists, and if the Princess Code had anything to go by, I would love for them to do anything Laguz related. Claude unfortunately didn't make the top cut despite looking as sharp as ever, but to make up for it, my favourite female in Fodland was able to entice me twice over, and makes me very excited to see if she'll pop up in any more seasonal summons.
I've got many skills, you know.
Her first performance was during the summertime, where she adopted a very stylish swimsuit that's one of the more unique in the game, and a wonderful fusion of both her pre- and post-time skip attire. Plus the composition is one of my personal favourites when it comes to swimwear, so that's nice. Her special trigger template is terrific, as using musical notes is a no-brainer, but the way the blues reflect off her skin is such a splendid detail, along with obscenely smooth and delicate lines to make Dorothea simply dazzling, all of which was done by Azuka, and is my second favourite of all the Spring Break beauties. Dorothea then decided to perform a duet with Leanne while they were on tour in Plegia, thus adopting the culture into their costumes and create one of the best dancer outfits to date. Unsurprisingly, both ladies dress similar to Faja, with a focus on replicating Dorothea's colour scheme with Leanne's blueprints, making for a fantastic reflection of the banner's theme and a fusion of the host garment, to create a true spectacle that makes Dorothea look so seductive and Leanne far more refined and mature, with a stunning special trigger resembling peacock feathers and a nice contrast to their dark dresses. Makaya designed their uniforms, and though their only other work is Resplendent Orwen, they have an incredible track record and demonstrate exceptional creativity, and if the fan art is any evidence, they will go down as one of the best alts in Fire Emblem history, and fitting for who I consider the tip top of the Free Houses tier list.
I'm practically swooning.
Another member of the Eagles have a brilliant build is Bernadetta, as despite her aversion to exchanges, no one can say no to Christmas, and it's great to see her looking so full of life, plus the fact that her attack animation forms a gingerbread house is an automatic win. Now Bernie's outfit isn't especially extravagant, but it's very cute and has some nice features like a plushy purse with Bernie's mannerisms being captured so perfectly, ranging from nervous, hopeful to utter dread. And it's great to see Toby be on their A-game once again, providing a simple yet sweet take on the shut-in and shows that the holiday season brings out the best in everyone. During the same event, Hilda took advantage of the situation and decided to indulge her OnlyFans with a lovely little Santa suite that hits the ideal intersection between cute and sexy that fits Hilda so well you'd swear she was designed with this banner in mind. Hilda has always been as special as a snowflake, and in this attire she's so bright and bubbly while showing just enough skin and some very spicy features to accentuate her allure. And despite being a bit too heavy-handed on the reds and pinks, the artist Hako was very clever in ensuring that the pinks were soft while the reds remained harsh. Plus the giant candy cane is very funny and probably how most men's bodies would react to seeing Hilda.
Go you!
Haku also did the art for her BFF Marianne, currently standing as their boldest work to date, and I pray these two become a duo unit in the near future. In fact, it seems I spoke too soon, as once the script was initially finished, the 2021 summer banner soon dropped, with Hilda and Marianne deciding to double dip on some bathing suits and act as one of the sweetest sets of heroes in the game and a symbol of their status as practically sisters. On their own, these two have really attractive attire, with Hilda donning a more revealing but also frilly bikini, which is both seductive but also cute and playful, while Marianne is more restrained but with a refined and stylish set of swimwear, reflecting the disposition of these two brilliantly, as well as using colours and general composition that is pulled from their post-timeskip outfits, which is fitting given that pre-timeskip Marianne would never agree to this kind of charade. Niji Hayashi got drafted into setting up their photo shoot, and while not nearly as creative or extravagant as their other work, I love how bold the colours are and the way they capture the two's personalities perfectly. Also, the subtle detail of Hilda always in the foreground is an excellent touch, and here's hoping more of my prayers get answered as Heroes continues to construct more characters. The Golden Deer seems to be getting all the glow-ups as of late, with Lysithia coming second during the 2020 Female Choose Your Legends voting poll. And holy crap did Intelligent Systems spare no expense in making her look equally as impressive as the power she wields. Now Lysithia doesn't have a personal class like the other lords, as this form is based on her Grimoire affiliation. However, the colours are drastically darker, with significant importance placed on the blacks and purples, increasing her maturity, all the while having soft whites and glistening golds to refine her presence while retaining her innocence. Plus extras like the hat exert confidence. Amagaitaro was accountable for this revamp, and based on their previous work is the perfect person for the job, and definitely deserves a slice of cake for all their efforts. Some of the Blue Lions were able to cement themselves among the best of the faculty, and they just so happened to be part of the first Three Houses summer banner, with Ingrid swimming up to the fishing hole, who despite not caring for her appearance, never fails to turn a few heads, as their swimsuit, while more practical than most, is really cute with the ribbons and frills, plus the colour scheme is a vivid nod to her post-timeskip design, with the level of detail gone into the tones and her hair being astounding, and having the marine life become her tools of war is silly in all the right ways. I just hope she doesn't eat them beforehand. Sencho once again brings their brilliance to the table, as this wasn't the first time they designed a bathing suit, using their talents to make Ingrid look genuine but also unique, and no wonder as to why marriage proposals are a common occurrence in her life. Sylvana was the other representative of the kingdom to kick back and enjoy the scenery, as he looks like such a catch and could easily bag himself a babe if he put this much effort into his diction. Sylvain's swimwear is significantly more stylish than what most men slap on, as the sunglasses, necklace and belt add quite a bit of character, and seeing him carry around drinks makes him look so dapper as if he owns the place, with the colours acting as a subtle symbol of his time-skipped uniform, along with a light but very nice muscle detail and a smile I'm sure even Ingrid would have to admire.
Impressive.
His artist Argon had previous experience making Walt look like he's worth a damn, and it's great to see this love-struck loser look like such a boss, and makes me wonder what some of the other lads would look like once they strip down to their speedos. On second thought, I'd rather not imagine such a scenario, as Lorenz took this idea to heart and became a cursed image and one of two characters that blemished this game's otherwise esteemed reputation within the realm of Asuka. Before aging like a fine wine, Lorenz looked about as appealing as a f***, and while his shirt is actually kinda cool thanks to those fabulously fashionable frills, and his special trigger is kinda kick-ass, having to gaze upon Lorenz in a speedo is so off-putting, as the dude clearly needs to hit the gym and there's barely any extra elements to increase his style, with a very basic colour scheme. And if that wasn't bad enough, the same artist Penagora also did Summer Xander, who's a hunk and had a fun idea to go with his chiseled features. So it's not like they were out of their element, but I guess it's only fitting for Lorenz to look so lame, as even Mercedes can't stand the sight of him, and you've got to be a real piece of work to piss her off. Ah, Mercedes, salutations. I dare say, have you bear witness to my fabulous summer attire? Striking, is it not? I picked it out myself, for only my noble bearing could possibly understand the finest fashion. In fact, I most certainly could assist you in choosing the appropriate swimwear. After all, the, outfit you cobbled together, while impressive for a commoner, is hardly befitting of a woman such as yourself. Clearly you don't comprehend the delicate intricacies of—
Boy, shut your bitch ass up! Now listen here, you thick-headed, shit-smelling, stupid, noble bitch. I'm surprised you don't ever stop fucking talking, considering how far up your ass your ugly-ass, purple-haired head is, fucking meerkat face-ass bitch. Next time you so much as glance in my direction, I'm going to beat your ass so bad your own bloodline will reject your DNA, and no gatekeeper is gonna protect you. I already know Dorothea and Leone want to shove your ugly mug in the dirt and feed you to a horde of demonic beasts, so you better watch your ugly ass self, cause next time I'm coming to Bolganome the fuck out of you, to the point where there won't even be enough ashes left at your funeral. I'm telling you, bitch boy, no amount of noble nonsense will prepare for how much I'm gonna reconstruct your face. Heck, if anything, it'll be an improvement from the shit show I'm currently looking at. So next time you decide to enlighten us commoners with your classist bullshit, just remember that Mercedes von Martritz is more than happy to reunite you with the goddess, only for her to send you to the depths of hell, you punk-ass motherfucker.
Begging your pardon, could you say that again? I grow dreadfully bored of listening to commoners. Lorenz isn't the only one who needed 5 years to blossom. As though Daisuki looks fine from the get-go, Heroes decided to regress her so far back she's practically a nursery and doesn't help her case of wanting to be taken seriously. While she's one of the youngest students at Garrick Mark, Little Miss Odelia still has an aura of wisdom to her, but thanks to Heroes, you wouldn't be blamed for assuming she's just learned how to read, for her frame is minuscule with a very round, soft face, and other features which, while admittedly cute, makes it impossible to take her seriously and also removes the uneasy impression she initially emanated. Though I will say the purple hue around her skin and hair works surprisingly well. Enkyo Yuichiro's style is unmistakable, and it's a crying shame that this is the only time I've had to talk about them in a negative sense, but even then it's much better than a lot of the crap we've already sat through, and does make me want to poke her cheek as if she were a platelet. We may have caught up to the Fire Emblem chronology, but there's still the spin-offs to scrutinize minus anything Warriors related, because honestly who gives a flying fuck? Tokyo Mirage Session succeeded in getting a small part in this play, and though it's just their default outfit, there's still much to marvel at. Starting off, there's Eleonaro, who despite bearing the persona of the dull-looking duke, is bursting with vivacity and bravura, having a wonderful mix of colours that practically burst off the screen and are almost hypnotising, consisting of a nice mix of floral and metallic features like a middle ground between nature and technology, past and future, light and dark. I could go on forever. And the artist Kakage really did steal the show with this submission, so it's nice to know that even with such a small roster, it doesn't detract from the game's glamour. This also marks the final appearance of Humuka Yuji in this video, with their version of Mamori, as though yeah, she does look a bit young compared to her source material, I don't think it's nearly as jarring as Lucina's renovation. Not to mention, their style works wonders at making her bright yet imposing, with her persona getting the best result possible, as Draug is a Goliath and the armor almost supernatural in its stature, reminding me of the Destroyer from 4 and Nightmare from Metroid Fusion, making this an incredibly striking and daunting familiar, while resembling an extension of Little Mamori, making for the best of both worlds and another excellent addition to their repertoire. Now honestly, I can't think of any TMS art that is legitimately bad, or even below average for that matter, but though I really have to nitpick, then I will say that Tsubasa is my least favourite of the 5 purely because I think they made her face look a little too youthful. Granted, this is me being at my most petty, as everything else is lovely, and heck, her design does complement her facial features very well, but compared to a canonical incarnation, it definitely feels like she's just barely broken into her teens, but like I said, I'm being a little bitch for the sake of looking at both ends of the spectrum, so don't let it sully how you view this impeccable idol. Some of you may be wondering why there's still a good portion of the video left. Well, there's still some heroes to look at, and it turns out they hail from, well, Fire Emblem heroes, as the game has continually expanded its cast and world, with the quality of their writing and designs varying from summon to summon. The first 2 OCs heroes brought into the Fire Emblem universe were the siblings Alphonse and Shirina, both of which have had plenty of ults throughout the years, and fitting that my preference is when they're side by side to celebrate the future, for their outfits are so tender and very distinct, as the first shoulders, checkered patterns around the trim and floral features are gorgeous, that attributes both the banner and their lineage, plus colour choices that complement the siblings splendidly. The artist Argon has experience with both Alphonse and New Year summons, so using their knowledge to create such a lovely alliance between the two is especially sweet. But what good is a hero without a worthy adversary? Because if fate is any evidence, they both suck. For Veronica was the first main antagonist of the game who had Xander wrapped around her little finger, and one day joined forces to sail the 7 seas, because given her age, I wouldn't be surprised if she was out there looking for SpongeBob. As far as pirates go, both of these monarchs have rather elegant outfits, with slick attire and many extra elements to reflect their regal route, as well as bearing the same colours as their default drapes, making them look and feel genuine while embracing the banner in full. And I love how Penacor made their complexion slightly lighter than when they're on duty. Though this wasn't the first time they collaborated with the Crown Prince, but does mark their debut work on duo units and easily worth their weight in gold. As the game's popularity grew, so did its universe, as the heroes of Asgard traveled to both Nithil and Muspel during Book 2. That remains my favourite chapter in the story so far, thanks in part to what I feel to be the best addition to the cast in the form of the Princess of Ice Fjord, being the ultimate beauty birth from this game, and in my opinion one of the best character designs in all of fiction, as this regent gets everything right in her attire. The blues and golds contrast so well against each other, and the tones embody her lineage, gentle but determined nature, ice powers, resolve, and so much more. Plus her outfit makes for a really cool combat costume, while retaining the princess's elegance. The shoulder pads make her look more imposing, but are balanced out by their angelic feathers and her unique choice of cape, plus some leg gain for that slight bit of sex appeal, with even her hair consisting of her primary colours and rather similar to Timeskip Mercedes, which is the best kind of bonus. Mishima Shigeki created this celestial along with many other Book 2 OCs, including her ults, both of which are amazing, especially her bridal form, but Vanilla Fjord remains the greatest thing to come out of Fire Emblem Heroes until Sumiya finally becomes a bride. The Princess of Nithil is one of 4 royal representatives of the Ice Kingdom, with her older sister Gunthra being the motherly figure of the family, who despite meeting a dark demise was born again in the new year and looking as beautiful as ever. Gunthra's kimono falls in line with her base design, only now with a beautifully contrasting colour scheme, as her traditional ice-cold blues, when matched against the peach, white and pinks, strike a beautiful balance between winter and spring, complementing her warm, tender demeanour so much she could give Mercedes a run for her money regarding finesse, with the occasional reds and yellows to add that touch of diversity. This is one of Yushiku's earliest works in Heroes, since most of their catalogue consists of Book 4 characters, and it's wonderful to know that even in death, Gunthra will always make others smile with her sincerity. While their kingdoms might be enemies, Legion has often been featured alongside Gunthra during summoning sessions, with her swimsuit edition being a version of Her Highness I didn't even know I wanted, and possibly the sexiest thing to come out of Fire Emblem since Radiant Dawn Ha's base stats. The idea of Legion taking it easy at the beach sounds strange, but she looks so natural in a bathing suit as this one piece is so slick, showing off her voluptuous figure and just enough skin to ensure her allure, while remaining true to her identity and different from the typical bikini-bearing babes. The all-black base makes her empowered and erotic, with the reds and yellows being a nice callback to her uniform and having such seductive stances that ooze confidence and lust, with Mishima creating both her base and beach bodies, both of which blew me away, but during the summer holidays, she makes me sweat more than any amount of heat her homeland can produce. Legion is the eldest sister within her household, with her little sister Levatane having some of the most ults for a hero's OC, and once again contributing to the New Year's lineup, with an outfit that makes me forget that she's a danger to everyone around her. Levatane, despite being
the enemy,
contains many cute characteristics, which are shown off in full with this kimono, as it looks lovely on her petite frame, plus the colours, while limited, have such a brilliant blend of tones, as if the season itself was enveloping Legion's little sister in a warm embrace that is super sweet, with even her hair changing colour towards the tail end, and her true self shining through her expressions, with her special trigger art having such glorious greens and orange petals which Pixar would be proud of, as Kawasumi returns to grace us with yet another fantastic form that makes the new year look that little bit more promising. The next chapter in Hero's narrative suddenly did an interesting turn, as this is the first time it felt like Intelligent Systems went completely off the deep end, as Book 3 is so dark, mysterious, bleak, and man was it edgy. That being said, not everything about Numero 3 looks like it was from Hot Topic, as Air has one of the most dire yet serene designs, as if she were the physical embodiment of both life and death, as for the most part, she's so supple and has a very simple yet refined dress, with lovely details around her arms and upper torso, with hair that flows like the wind, giving her a unique sense of beauty, but her mother's influence has taken hold through her very bleak colours and torn lower half. There's a contrast I didn't immediately notice, along with her expression encapsulating the conflict within her heart for all to see and weep to. Kozaki Yusuke has created the majority of OCs within Heroes, with Air being such a perfect balance between two extremes that would make Thanos weak at the knees. Air's mother is not so reasonable when it comes to equilibrium, embracing death to the point where she wouldn't be out of place in the next Castlevania game whenever that happens. While most incarnations of the Grim Reaper are meant to be more down to earth and minimal, Hell makes you remember her face in your last moment, as her design is extremely over the top, having a garish throne and virtually a skeleton herself, that is both creepy if somewhat ridiculous, that in most scenarios I would criticize, for a game like Heroes isn't exactly out of place. Hell is brimming with detail regarding all the bones on display, and a purple hue spread throughout her frame, as the dark energy radiates from her core, corrupting everything it touches, with her special trigger looking like she's ready to drag your ass into the underworld, with Kozaki back again to give us their most peculiar creation yet, and a unique take on a being who's present since the dawn of time and will be with us once it all comes to an end. Book 4 didn't exactly keep the consistent tone from where Chapter 3 left off, instead doing a complete 180 as the heroes were whisked away into the world of dreams and could only be described as the Fire Emblem equivalent of an acid trip. The inhabitants of Jotunheimer are brimming with luminosity that make for some of the most unconventional entities in the franchise, with Lumeria going that extra mile to tempt us into spending our life savings on PNGs, as her New Year's design does a much better job of giving us lewd dreams than what came before, as when donning the traditional kimono, this Dokafla wears it in a way to entice and excite people with her figure. What I find most appealing are her colours, which are so varied and vivid as the purples, blacks and reds remain prominent, but are complemented beautifully by the blues and yellows to make the outfit flashy yet sophisticated and even somewhat pure, having a little bit of everything, and is certainly the most unique of Tefish's work that cements Flumeria's status as a visual metaphor for this game and its target audience.
Giggity, giggity, giggity.
The realm of Jotunheimer is overflowing with an organic ecosystem, so it's only fitting that the king would look like the essence of life itself. As while the outfit resembles the likes of a druid from any fantasy setting, the way the plant life resembles his staff, having a butterfly chest piece, robes that look like a mix of fur and feathers, plus horns to boot, in addition to the body of a human, creates a gorgeous fusion of all forms, along with so many colours that not only work in harmony with one another, but also help to give each section its own identity, with the level of detail put into these garments truly amazing, and yet the king remains humble and one with nature, and the way Yushiku was able to take elements from all the other fairies they formed to create their magnum opus is like a dream come true. Finally, we've come to Book 5, which is currently the newest chapter in the game's narrative, and as of this recording, not yet complete, so I can only observe those who've been shown up until this point, with the sisters Knot and Dagger looking like Greek goddesses and the types of women I would not have any problems being manhandled by.
Oh-ho!
Hailing from the kingdom of Jotunheimer, the twins have some of the most interesting concepts in the entire FE universe, as their animal bodies are present in all their portraits and feel like a part of their biology, with the wings and metallic colours helping these ladies to look sophisticated yet powerful and complement their attire, which in of itself is both pure and heroic, that despite lacking in colour variety, has some very nice intricate details to supplement their majesty, and the red capes continue to elevate their aura, almost as if they're Spartans or superheroes, with Kozaki Yusuke being the one to produce these prodigies, and enough of Fjorm and some of the Legion would be my favourite OCs to come from this game, which given how recently they arrived, is truly the work of the gods. Now we've come to an interesting crossroads, as the next character is a contender for both the best and worst design designation, that being the King of Neovila, Fafnir, as that title isn't exactly obvious given his choice of clothes. To me, Fafnir is one of the lamest outfits in the game that lacks any sort of charm, authority, dignity, intimidation, or honestly just about anything. Now granted, the whole point of his character is that he's not the man he used to be, so the outfit could be interpreted as a metaphor for his state of being, but given that he looks about as intimidating as a half-dead daffodil, with both limited and boring colours, there's just nothing about Fafnir for me to admire. Until he suits up for battle, as I love his mech Ryoma, as it encapsulates everything his base form is missing. It's scary and difficult to comprehend, resembles a husk that complements his character, has a unique design and shape, with purples assisting his base colours brilliantly, and the whole thing reminds me of a certain metal-faced mechon, and the type of armour fitting for both a villain and a king, and if anything shows that Kozaki is quite the mecha fan, even if they clearly wanted to clock out early when determining Fafnir's fashion sense. Retreating to Asker, both the Queen and Princess have ults that are another mixed bag for me, as during the Valentine's and Spring season, Henriette and Shirina dressed accordingly, and though they look undeniably lovely, with Shirina making for a very happy bunny, and Henriette yet another Fire Emblem MILF, their biggest misstep stems from trying too hard to make the maidens look as if they're saints, and result in somewhat bland depictions from my perspective. Now for what it's worth, the emphasis on whites and yellows makes sense, however since these two are already blonde with fair skin, their attire blends in a little too well, and lacks any visual distinction, not helped by the muted yellows and lack of additional colours to help section the outfit, which is a shame as there's a lot of charm to these concubines, as Kozaki Yusuke made Shirina's facial expression so precious, and the shadows by Yoshiro Rambe on Henriette are amazing, but on the whole these two are playing it far too safe, and strange that the king and prince had the better fashion sense during the corresponding events. Another Book 1 bunny that didn't make the front page was Bruno, as ignoring the obvious irony of the situation, dude looks about as awkward as Ignat's interactions with any woman, and only appealing when the costume begins to crumple if those abs are anything to go off.
Oh my.
On its own, Bruno's suit isn't too bad, as it's rather sharp and the purples both complement and contrast the whites. Unfortunately, the golds are so muted they are downright ugly, and given Bruno's mannerisms and attitude, doesn't suit his character even in a joking sense, as it's not silly enough to make for a hilarious satire, and lacks the level of refinement needed to better suit this sorcerer. And while I'm usually a big fan of trying to find a middle ground, this is an example of the worst case scenario, and though this isn't Penacoro's worst work, I do find it to be one of the most boring bunny forms to exist, which is a worse crime than whoever thought the Aether Race suitor was a good idea. Speaking of which, the main villain of Book 2 was not only a nightmare to deal with, but looking at him felt like my eyes were on fire with how hard he tried to be menacing. That reminded me of Nightmare's redesign in Soul Calibur 4, and frankly that game's artistic preference is something I never want to bring attention to ever again. Hailing from a land bathed in fire, there are elements of Suita's construction that are very striking, as the molten areas of his body are amazing, and I love how the cape resembles flames to truly embrace his title. However, much of this is overshadowed by his audaciously overblown armor, that while considerably large, has far too much gold overshadowing this outfit's strongest elements, making Suita seem like a pompous fool as opposed to King of Flames. Not helping the matter is that the composition resembles that of a giant kite, and so much of the design feels like Mishima Shingeki didn't know when to stop, though I must praise their creativity on the matter, and feel like given a slight tweak, could make for a set of armor that's smokin'! Having multiple ults comes with the risk of one of them not meeting the standards of its brethren, a fate that befell poor Levitane, and she looks so awkward when practicing ninjutsu, as just about anyone would notice that her colors are extremely basic, which while bold makes her poses lack depth and feels so odd compared to even some of the lesser art in the game, with the line work being just as minimal and not drawing attention to even her hair or the weaponry. Granted, complexity is not this costume's intention, and there is something about the design that does make me think of Studio Trigger, but thanks to being so bare bones, many of its best qualities essentially turn to ash and doesn't make for a very effective debut by Suzuhito Yasuda, though I do see potential here and hope that the future of this artist's work burns brightly. Moving from princess to queen is none other than Freya, whose outfit is honestly kind of a nightmare, for on their own many of the elements of this ensemble are amazing, but together result in a big old jumbled mess than just about any storyline in a Sonic game that came out during the mid to late 2000s. Contrary to the King of Dreams, the Queen of Nightmares has a bleak and threatening designation, yet too much of her attire clashes in regards to colour and composition, as her dress is elegant but also very dull, and she's got this huge dragonfly thing on her chest, with spikes enveloping her torso similar to that of a parasite. A nice metaphor for her jealousy, no doubt, but doesn't exactly fit with her more low-key getup and general mannerisms. It's such a shame that she ended up this way, as if Toshiku were to give this baby a tweak or two, there's a multiverse of potential here that could easily turn this nightmare of a nightgown into a dream come true, a factor that came to fruition with her summer ult, so here's hoping that she gets more interpretations in the future. And now let's scrape the very bottom of the barrel with a design so appalling I'm surprised it made it past the drawing board, as Loki debuted alongside the residents of Muspel, and from the get-go had a rather suggestive but unique formation. When the spring season came around, Loki threw what dignity she had into the fires of hell, as her newest costume may as well come with an M rating, as it's about as subtle as a brick to the face, from having just plain stupidly sized breasts to the forcefully evocative poses and facial expressions, her domination to Mia, and even quotes that refer to what goes on during rabbit season.
Giggity giggity.
There's nothing tactful about this tart, and it's the lowest hanging fruit out there. Plus I find it pretty boring, for if one excuses the eroticism, the colours are exceptionally constrained and pretty dull, with even her hair looking like it needs some Pantene. There's no extra features or garments, it pertains to the most basic of pattern work, and even though Kusakikara Toshiyuki has had some flops in the past, I could at least admire elements of their collection. Spring Loki has nothing that would make me want to explore down her rabbit hole, and is so unapologetic in its appearance, I'm just waiting for the day Heroes decide to say fuck it, and literally send news to its entire player base. Well, that took god fucking forever, but thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I'm glad that Fire Emblem Heroes has had such a positive impact on this series, and helps not only bring attention to some foreign-only faces, but also breathe new life into many classic heroes of legend, as well as creating their own entities that I would love to see in future titles like Warriors 2 if that ever happens. While the track record isn't perfect, the proportion of exceptional artwork in this game is staggering, and I thank every single artist who helped to make these portraits possible. And until this app is finally laid to rest, I look forward to what the Summoning Stone has in store for this franchise, and which character will have the most ults once all is said and done. Oh, who am I kidding? We all know Nintendo nor the fanbase will never get tired of milking Camilla till the cows literally come home. Thank you all for watching today. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed the video. Please let me know what you thought in the comments and what are some of your favourite and least favourite artwork in Heroes. And sorry that I wasn't able to cover some of the newest entries such as Witch Ray and Resplendent and Garo, as I love them both, but I didn't want to push this video back any further. I would like to say a very special thank you to Degeneratepeach for voicing Mercedes in this video. You did such a fantastic job and sounded brilliantly. And please be sure to give her a follow on Twitter where she posts her artwork, as it's some of the most unique and brilliant work I've seen, so please be sure to support her. Please be sure to leave a like and subscribe, as well as hit that notification bell to stay updated. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Discord and Amino, Twitch where I stream 6 days a week, as well as Patreon, in order to help make these videos possible and receive additional bonuses for doing so. And of course, I want to say the absolute biggest thank you to all my patrons who help make these videos possible and just always helping and supporting me. I can't believe it, we finally got this whole thing done. Sorry this one took, longer for the animation and stuff, but thank you so much. Thank you everyone who helped with the voice work. Just thank you, all of you, you're absolute best. I love you all. Thank you for always being there, supporting me, helping me out, just helping making me fulfill these, these dreams and these passion projects I just want to do, and always being there for me. Again, especially with everything that's going down, you people truly are amazing. I love you all so much. Thank you. And I'd like to say a very special thank you to Wolffox, Shadow Dragon, Lucina21, Degeneratepeach, K-Dog, Chaos Sableye, Vincent Clark, Midnight Castle, Maggie Fall, Patanko Fan 32, Jeremy Renninger, Bernadetta 392, Daniel Hodgson, Twisted Scarecrow, and finally Cameron Reynolds. Thank you all so much. I love you all. You're the absolute best. Anyway, that's it from me. I'll see you all next time.